You never saw the danger first. You smelled it long before the crowded streets came into view, long before the endless voices of merchants filled the morning air, long before the bells of London's churches announced another ordinary day. There was a smell, a heavy mixture of damp timber, coal smoke, wet earth, horse manure, stale beer, rotting vegetables, human sweat, and the slow-moving waters of the River Thames. It wrapped itself around every street, every doorway, every alley. It settled into your clothes. It clung to your skin. It followed you home. And after enough years, you no longer noticed it, because that smell was London. If you had somehow stepped into the city on a cold morning in the early 18th century, you would probably have covered your nose within seconds. You might even have wondered how nearly 600,000 people could possibly live in a place like this. But the people who called London home asked a different question every single morning. Not, how beautiful is my city? Not, what adventures await today? Instead, they asked something much simpler. Can I make it through another day? That single question shaped almost every decision they made, every coin they spent, every job they accepted, every road they chose to walk, every stranger they decided to trust or avoid. Because London was not simply Britain's largest city. It was a living machine, a machine that never stopped moving. It consumed food, coal, timber, cloth, iron animals, ships, money, dreams, and sometimes people. Every sunrise pulled thousands of men and women into its enormous heart. Some arrived carrying tools. Some carried merchandise. Some carried letters. Others carried nothing except hope. Not all of them would leave the city with the future they imagined. Some would become wealthy merchants whose names appeared in newspapers. Some would own successful workshops and employ dozens of apprentices. Some would build fortunes importing tea, sugar, silk, and spices from across the globe. But many more would disappear into the endless rhythm of ordinary life, their names forgotten, their struggles unnoticed, their stories untold. History often remembers kings. It remembers wars. It remembers famous inventors, great fires, and magnificent buildings. But history rarely pauses long enough to remember the woman who scrubbed laundry until her hands bled, the dock worker who spent 30 years unloading ships in every season, the young apprentice who dreamed of opening his own shop but never lived long enough to do so, or the child who spent every morning carrying water through crowded streets before the sun had fully risen. Yet these were the people who truly kept London alive. Without them, the baker would have no flour. The merchant would have no customers. The ships would never sail. The markets would stand empty. The city itself would simply stop breathing. And breathing was exactly what London seemed to do. It inhaled thousands of newcomers every year. Young men from farming villages arrived believing the city offered opportunity. Young women came hoping to find respectable work as servants, seamstresses, or shop assistants. Sailors stepped ashore after months at sea carrying wages, stories, and dreams of spending both before the week was over. Merchants arrived from Amsterdam, Lisbon, Paris, and beyond. Each brought something different. Money, ideas, skills, ambition, fear, hope. Together, they transformed London into something Europe had never seen before. A city growing faster than anyone could fully control. New houses appeared almost as quickly as old ones disappeared. Narrow lanes stretched outward into fresh neighborhoods. Warehouses crowded the riverbanks. Church towers pierced the smoky skyline. Everywhere you looked, something was being built. Something was being bought. Something was being repaired. Or someone was desperately trying not to lose everything they owned. Imagine standing at the edge of the city just before dawn. The eastern sky begins to glow with the faintest hint of silver. The air is bitterly cold. Tiny drops of mist drift above the Thames like silent ghosts. Then, one church bell rings. Its deep voice rolls across the rooftops. Another answers. Then another. Within moments, dozens of bells echo together until the entire city seems to awaken through sound alone. Windows creak open. Stable doors swing wide. Dogs bark. Horses stamp impatiently against wooden floors. Somewhere, a baby begins to cry. A baker feeds another log into his oven. The smell of fresh bread slowly fights against the smoke hanging over the streets. A chimney sweep, no older than 10, rubs sleep from his eyes before beginning another day that will cover him in soot from head to toe. Across the lane, a widow quietly lights the only candle she can afford to burn before sunrise. Its tiny flame flickers uncertainly against the darkness. She watches it for a moment, not because it is beautiful, but because replacing that candle will cost money she does not yet have. Every object in 18th century London had value. Every candle, every nail, every loaf of bread, every scrap of cloth. Nothing was wasted. Nothing could be, because survival left very little room for carelessness. You quickly learn to repair before replacing, to save before spending, to work before resting, and above all, to prepare for tomorrow. Because tomorrow was never guaranteed. Not in a city where disease moved silently through crowded neighborhoods, where a single spark could reduce entire streets to ashes, where one missed week of wages might leave an entire family hungry. London rewarded determination, but it showed very little mercy. Still, people continued to arrive, because for all its dangers, London offered something that smaller towns often could not. Possibility, not certainty, not comfort, not safety, only possibility. And for countless ordinary people, that was enough to risk everything. So, as the first sunlight finally reaches the highest rooftops, as smoke rises from thousands of chimneys, as the streets begin filling with footsteps, voices, wagons, merchants, apprentices, sailors, servants, beggars, and dreamers, take one last look at the city from a distance. Because once you step inside, London will not simply ask you to observe it. It will demand that you survive it. Before the sun has fully climbed above the rooftops, before London's busiest streets begin to roar with thousands of voices, a single pair of tired eyes slowly opens. They are not the eyes of a king, not a wealthy merchant, not a famous politician whose name will one day appear in history books. They belong to an ordinary Londoner, someone history has almost completely forgotten. Yet if you truly want to understand 18th century London, this is exactly the person you should follow. Because cities are never built by the powerful alone. They are built by ordinary people who wake before dawn, work until exhaustion, and quietly repeat the same struggle every single day. You lie perfectly still for a moment, not because you are comfortable, because you are listening. The house speaks before anyone inside it does. Old wooden beams groan softly as the cold night air begins to warm. Wind whistles through tiny gaps around the window frame. Somewhere overhead, rainwater left from yesterday's storm drips slowly from the roof into a wooden barrel outside. Beside you, someone coughs. A deep, persistent cough. The kind almost every London family recognizes. Whether it comes from years of breathing coal smoke, long hours working beside damp river docks, or an illness no doctor fully understands. No one can say. The coughing stops. For now, you push aside a ruffled blanket that has been repaired so many times its original color is almost impossible to recognize. The room greets you with a bitter chill. The fire burned out hours ago. Fuel is expensive. No sensible family allows it to burn through the entire night, unless someone is dangerously ill. Your feet touch the wooden floor. It is colder than expected. You instinctively pull them back for a second before forcing yourself to stand. Outside, London is already awake. Not loudly, not yet, but quietly, patiently, like a giant creature stretching before beginning another endless day. The room itself is small, far smaller than most modern bedrooms. The ceiling hangs low overhead. Dark wooden beams cross from one wall to the other, stained black after decades of smoke from countless winters. The walls are uneven. Some sections lean ever so slightly, reminding you that many of London's houses were already old long before you were born. There is very little furniture. A narrow bed, a simple wooden chest holding nearly everything you own, one rough table, 2 stools, a shelf with a few clay bowls, a cracked pewter cup, perhaps a Bible if your family has been fortunate enough to own one. Nothing more, nothing unnecessary. Every object has earned its place through usefulness. Luxury belongs somewhere else. Not here. You reach for yesterday's clothes hanging beside the bed. There are no wardrobes overflowing with choices. Most working people own only a handful of garments: a linen shirt, a wool coat, a pair of breeches, or a simple dress. A heavy cloak for winter, if they are fortunate. Each item has been mended countless times. Every tear stitched carefully. Every loose button sewn back into place. Clothing is not fashion. It is survival. Replacing it costs money few families possess. As you dress, the smell of the house slowly becomes familiar once again. Ash from yesterday's fire. Damp wood. Old wool. A faint trace of cabbage lingering from last night's supper. It isn't pleasant, but it isn't unpleasant either. It is simply the smell of home. From downstairs comes a gentle crackle of a new fire being coaxed back to life. Someone is already awake. Probably your mother, or perhaps your wife. The day often begins with whoever reaches a hearth first. Fire means warmth. Warmth means breakfast. Breakfast means enough strength to face another day. Without speaking, you descend the narrow staircase. Each step creaks beneath your weight. The sound is so familiar that nobody even looks up. The kitchen is little more than one room, centered around the fireplace. Here, everything happens. Meals are cooked. Clothes are repaired. Children learn their first lessons. Neighbors gather on winter evenings. Arguments begin. Stories end. The fireplace is the heart of the house. Without it, life almost stops. A black iron pot already hangs above the flames. Inside, a simple porridge thickens slowly as someone stirs with a long wooden spoon polished smooth by years of use. No expensive spices. No sugar sprinkled generously across the top. Perhaps a little salt. If fortune has smiled recently, a small piece of butter. For many families, that is enough. Fresh bread sits beside the fire, not the soft white bread served in wealthy homes. This loaf is darker, heavier, made from cheaper grains. It fills the stomach. That is what matters. You eat quietly. Conversation is limited. Morning is for thinking. Everyone silently plans the hours ahead. Will today's wages cover tomorrow's rent? Will enough customers visit the workshop? Will the weather remain dry? Will illness stay away for another week? Questions fill the room more easily than answers. A child rubs sleep from tired eyes while holding a wooden spoon almost too large for small hands. Across the table, an elderly grandfather slowly chews his breakfast, his swollen fingers revealing decades of physical labor. No one rushes him. Old age itself is something to respect. Many never reach it. Outside, the sounds grow stronger. The first wagon rattles over uneven cobblestones. A horse neighs impatiently. Somewhere nearby, a street vendor announces fresh milk for sale. Church bells ring again. Not loudly, just enough to remind everyone that time has already begun slipping away. You pull your coat tightly around your shoulders, step toward the front door, and hesitate, only for a second, because once that door opens, the city takes over. Everything inside this house belongs to your family. Everything outside belongs to London. And London asks something from every person who enters its streets. It asks for effort. It asks for caution. It asks for resilience. Sometimes, it asks for more than a person has left to give. You lift the heavy wooden latch. The door groans open. A gust of cold morning air rushes inside, carried with the smell of smoke, horses, damp stone, and a city already racing toward another uncertain day. You step outside, pull the door shut behind you, and without realizing it, you become one more ordinary soul swallowed by the endless heartbeat of 18th century London. The streets ahead are growing busier with every passing minute. Thousands of journeys have just begun, and yours is only one of them. The moment your front door closes behind you, the city claims you. The warmth of the fireplace disappears almost instantly, replaced by a damp chill that settles beneath your coat. The cold is not sharp enough to make you stop walking, but it lingers on your skin like an unwelcome companion, reminding you that comfort is a luxury few Londoners enjoy for very long. The narrow street before you is already alive, not with the frantic rush of modern cities, but with a slower, heavier rhythm, a rhythm built from thousands of ordinary lives beginning at exactly the same time. The first thing you notice is not what you see, it is what you hear. Wooden wagon wheels rumble over uneven cobblestones. each bump sending loud echoes between tightly packed houses. Horses snort clouds of white breath into the cold air, stamping impatiently as drivers tug gently at worn leather reins. A blacksmith somewhere nearby has already begun his work. The steady clang, clang, clang of hammers striking hot iron rings through morning like a heartbeat that never seems to stop. A baker calls to his young apprentice. A dog barks behind a wooden gate. A woman laughs briefly before disappearing into the crowd. Above everything else, the church bells continue their patient conversation with the city. Each sound blends into another until London itself seems to sing. Not a beautiful song, but an honest one. You begin walking carefully. The streets demand your attention. They are nothing like the smooth roads of the modern world. Every few steps the ground changes beneath your feet. Here, loose cobblestones rock unexpectedly. Their thick mud is collected where last night's rain mixed with horse manure, ash from fireplaces, and discarded scraps from yesterday's market. A careless step could soak your boots before breakfast. Many people don't even own proper boots. Some wrap worn cloth around their feet beneath cracked leather shoes. Others simply accept wet feet as another unavoidable part of life. Children, however, move through the streets with astonishing confidence. A boy no older than 8 darts between 2 wagons carrying a basket nearly half his size. He never slows, never hesitates. He knows exactly which stones remain firm and which puddles are deeper than they appear. London has taught him lessons no classroom ever could. Across the street, a chimney sweep begins his day's work. He is painfully young. His face is already stained with black, so despite the morning having barely begun. A bundle of brushes hangs over one shoulder. He smiles at another sweep passing in the opposite direction. For a brief second, they are simply 2 children greeting one another. Then each disappears toward another chimney, waiting to be cleaned. You cannot help wondering how many years this work has already stolen from them. The air grows thicker as you continue. Coal smoke drifts from hundreds of chimneys overhead, forming a gray veil that softens the morning sunlight. The city rarely smells fresh. Instead, every neighborhood possesses its own mixture of scents. Near one corner you catch the rich aroma of warm bread cooling outside a bakery. Only a few steps later, it disappears beneath the sharp smell of freshly tanned leather spilling from a cobbler's workshop. Further ahead comes fish. Strong, salty, unmistakable. A porter struggles beneath 2 heavy baskets filled with the morning's catch from the Thames. People instinctively step aside, not out of politeness, because nobody wants to smell clinging to their clothes for the rest of the day. Every profession announces itself long before you see it. The cooper's workshop smells of fresh oak. The brewer's yard carries the scent of malt and yeast. The candle maker's shop releases warm beeswax into the cool morning air. The butcher's corner needs no introduction. Nothing in London is hidden. Life happens openly. The wealthy pass beggars. Merchants pass laborers. Lawyers walk beside sailors. Servants hurry past gentlemen dressed in fine wool coats. Everyone shares the same streets, but not the same life. A magnificent carriage suddenly approaches from behind. Its polished wheels splash muddy water across the road as 4 powerful horses pull it effortlessly through the crowd. People move aside without being asked, not because the law requires it, because experience has taught them there is little sense arguing with wealth. For a brief moment, you catch a glimpse through the carriage window. A lady sits comfortably inside. Her elegant silk dress catches the morning light. Soft gloves cover hands that have likely never carried a bucket of water or unloaded a ship. She glances toward the street, only for an instant, then the carriage rolls away, leaving behind nothing but deep wheel tracks in the mud. You continue walking. Ahead, the city begins growing louder. The streets widen slightly. More people appear from every direction. Porters balance impossible loads across their shoulders. Apprentices hurry with bundles tied tightly in rough cloth. Women carry woven baskets, overflowing with vegetables gathered before sunrise. An old man carefully pushes a small cart filled with firewood. Every face tells a different story. Some wear quiet determination. Others reveal exhaustion that never truly disappears. A few still carry hope. You notice something else. Almost nobody walks without purpose. There's no wandering, no leisurely morning stroll. Every step is connected to survival. Someone is late for work. Someone must reach the docks before another ship arrives. Someone hopes to sell enough eggs before noon. Someone desperately searches for employment after losing yesterday's position. Time itself has value. To waste it is to risk tomorrow. Then, the crowd suddenly slows. Not because of an accident, not because of danger, but because the marketplace is just ahead. Its sound reaches you first. Hundreds of voices rise together like waves crashing against a shoreline. Laughter, arguments, prices shouted across narrow streets. The clucking of chickens, the squealing of pigs, the creak of overloaded carts, the ring of coins striking wooden counters. It is impossible to mistake. This is the beating heart of London's daily life. And before another hour has passed, you will discover that within these crowded market streets, fortunes can be made, friendships can begin, and a single careless moment can cost a person everything they own. You hear the market long before you see it. Its voice rolls through the narrow streets like a living tide, growing louder with every step you take. At first, it is only a distant murmur. Then individual sounds begin to separate. A woman loudly advertising fresh bread still warm from the oven. A butcher calling out the price of beef before another stall steals his customers. A fishwife laughing so loudly that even people several streets away turn their heads. A child crying after becoming lost in the crowd. Someone arguing over the cost of a sack of barley. Someone else swearing they have been cheated. The closer you walk, the more impossible it becomes to tell where one voice ends and another begins. Then, the street suddenly opens before you. And there it is, the market, the beating heart of 18th century London. If the Thames is the city's bloodstream, then the marketplace is its heart, pumping life into every neighborhood from sunrise until evening. For a brief moment, you simply stand still. There is almost too much to take in. Hundreds of people move in every direction. Porters weave through impossible gaps with heavy baskets balanced across their shoulders. Women carefully examine vegetables while quietly calculating whether they can afford enough food for another day. Merchants stand proudly behind wooden stalls overflow with goods from every corner of Britain, and increasingly from every corner of the world. The air itself seems alive. It changes every few steps. Fresh bread with smoke, roasted chestnuts, wet straw, salted fish, raw meat, beeswax candles, leather, cheese, herbs, ale, horse sweat, human sweat, coal smoke drifting overhead from 1,000 chimneys. Each smell fights for your attention until together they create something uniquely London. Not pleasant, not unpleasant, simply unforgettable. You move deeper into the crowd. Immediately, the pace changes. There is no room for hesitation. People brush past your shoulders from every direction. A sailor carrying coils of rope. A maid balancing a basket of eggs with extraordinary care. A gentleman stepping carefully to avoid splashing mud onto polished shoes. Two apprentices racing one another through the crowd despite angry protests from everyone they nearly knock over. Nobody stops moving, because every minute matters. Every customer matters. Every coin matters. You pass the first row of food stalls. Large wheels of cheese rest upon rough wooden tables. Some are pale yellow, others darker with age. Nearby, baskets overflow with onions, turnips, carrots, cabbages, and leeks. These humble vegetables feed thousands of London families through long winters. Luxury is rare. Necessity fills most baskets. One merchant proudly displays apples polished until they shine in the weak morning light. Another sells sacks of oats. A third carefully measures flour using heavy brass scales. Customers watch every movement. Trust is valuable, but verification is wiser. Weights are checked. Price is questioned. Quality inspected. Nobody wishes to waste even a single penny. A woman wearing a faded wool cloak holds 2 small coins tightly inside her hand. She pauses before every stall, calculating, comparing, wondering which purchase will feed her children longest. You can almost see the mathematics unfolding inside her mind. Bread today, or meat tomorrow, butter, or another bundle of firewood. Every choice carries consequences. Further ahead, the fish market announces itself before you arrive. The smell grows stronger, sharper. Barrels packed with ice are still uncommon, so speed is everything. Fresh fish must be sold quickly. Vendors shout over one another with astonishing energy. Fresh cod, river eels, herring, best catch of the morning. Hands move constantly. Fish are cleaned, scaled, wrapped. Money changes owners almost faster than the eye can follow. Not every customer leaves satisfied. Arguments break out frequently. One buyer insists yesterday's fish has been mixed with today's catch. The merchant denies everything. Nearby shoppers pause only briefly before continuing with their own business. Disagreements are simply another ordinary part of market life. Across another lane stand a butcher. Large cuts of meat hang from heavy iron hooks. The work is messy, demanding, necessary. Nothing is hidden behind glass displays. Everything remains visible. The skill of the butcher determines whether customers return tomorrow. Nothing can be disguised for long. Then, a completely different sound captures your attention. Music. A young fiddler stands beside a busy intersection. His clothes are worn, his boots nearly falling apart. Yet, the melody flowing from his violin is beautiful. Children gather first, then adults. Some smile. Others quietly drop a coin into the small hat resting at his feet. For a few precious moments, the market forgets itself. Business slows. People simply listen. Even in one of Europe's busiest cities, music still possesses the power to stop time. But London never pauses for long. As quickly as the crowd gathers, it moves again. The city's endless rhythm continues. Not every face here belongs to an honest trader. Markets attract opportunity. Opportunity attracts deception. You notice a man standing unusually still. Unlike everyone else, he is watching people, not goods. His eyes drift quietly from purse to purse, from pocket to pocket, searching, waiting. He never appears hurried. That would attract attention. Instead, he blends perfectly into crowd. Another man bumps gently into a passing merchant. Apologies are exchanged. The merchant continues walking. Only several moments later does he discover his purse is gone. The thief has already disappeared. No shouting, no dramatic chase. Simply another lesson London teaches every day. Keep your money hidden. Trust carefully. Remain alert, because the city rewards attention and punishes carelessness. Yet despite the danger, despite the noise, despite the endless competition, there is something strangely hopeful about this place. People arrive here every morning believing today might be different. Perhaps more customers will come. Perhaps prices will improve. Perhaps someone important will notice their work. Hope is bought and sold alongside bread, cloth, and fish. It costs nothing. Yet everyone seems willing to carry it home. By late morning, the market has become almost impossible to navigate. The crowd grows thicker. Voices louder. The streets warmer beneath hundreds of moving bodies. Somewhere nearby, church bells ring once again. Leave the marketplace behind, and something unexpected happens. The noise does not disappear. It changes. The endless shouting of merchants slowly fades into the distance. In its place comes another language. A language spoken not with words, but with tools. The sharp crack of a hammer striking iron. The rhythmic scrape of a saw cutting through thick oak. The steady hiss of steam rising from boiling vats. The creaking of spinning wheels. The rasp of metal files shaping stubborn pieces of steel. Every street seems to have its own rhythm. Every workshop its own heartbeat. This is where London is truly built. Not inside Parliament. Not inside royal palaces. But inside hundreds of small workshops hidden behind plain wooden doors. Push one of those doors open, and you enter another world. The air changes immediately. Outside, the morning carries the smell of horses, smoke, and crowded streets. Inside, the scent of freshly cut timber fills your lungs. Tiny particles of sawdust float lazily through narrow beams of sunlight pouring in from a small window high above. The room is warm, not because anyone wishes for comfort, because constant work generates heat. A master carpenter stands beside a heavy oak bench scarred by decades of use. His hands tell the story of his life better than any diary ever could. The skin is thick. The fingers are rough. Small white scars cross his knuckles. Every mark was earned. Each one remembers a tool that slipped, a splinter buried too deeply, or a day's work completed despite exhaustion. He says very little. He doesn't need to. His tools speak for him. A plane glides smoothly across a rough plank. Long curls of pale would fall silently onto the floor. Again, and again, and again, with every careful stroke, a crooked piece of timber slowly becomes perfectly straight. There is something almost hypnotic about watching true craftsmanship. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is wasted. Precision matters more than speed, because a poorly made chair may collapse. A badly fitted door may never close properly. A weak wagon could cost someone their life on a distant country road. Quality is not simply pride. It is responsibility. Across the room, a young apprentice watches every movement. He cannot be more than 13 years old, perhaps 14. His clothes are stained with glue and sawdust. His arms ache from carrying heavy timber since dawn, yet his eyes never leave the master's hands. Every movement is another lesson. There are no classrooms here, no printed manuals explaining each technique. Knowledge passes directly from one generation to the next, one pair of hands teaching another. For 7 long years, sometimes even longer, an apprentice belongs to his master. He sweeps floors, sharpens tools, carries supplies, lights fires, runs errands across the city. Only after proving patience, discipline, and skill does he slowly earn the privilege of creating something with his own hands. Many never finish. Some run away. Some fall ill. Others simply discover that the trade they once admired is far harder than they imagined. Those who remain become craftsmen, the backbone of London. Step outside again. Just a few doors farther stands the blacksmith's forge. You hear it before you see it. Clang! The sound explodes into the street. Bright orange sparks burst through the open doorway like tiny shooting stars before vanishing against the damp ground. Inside, the heat is overwhelming. Even during winter, a roaring fire glows almost white beneath thick layers of burning coal. The blacksmith grips a glowing bar of iron with heavy tongs. His leather apron is scorched from years of standing too close to the flames. Sweat rolls down his forehead despite the cold weather outside. He lifts the iron, places it upon the anvil. Then the hammer falls. Clang. Again. Clang. Again. Every strike reshapes the glowing metal. A horseshoe, a hinge, a lock, a cooking pot, a nail. The city depends on thousands of objects like these. Most people never stop to admire them. But without the blacksmith, nothing moves. No carriage, no wagon, no ship, no farm. His work touches nearly every life in London. Continue walking. Another workshop spills the rich smell of ink into the street. The printer's shop. Here, ideas become permanent. Rows of tiny metal letters rest neatly inside wooden trays. Each must be picked up one by one, placed carefully into a frame, line after line, page after page. A single mistake means beginning again. The printing press itself groans as heavy pressure forces ink onto thick paper. Slowly, another page emerges. Perhaps it contains tomorrow's newspaper, perhaps a religious sermon, perhaps a scientific discovery, perhaps a political argument. No one inside knows which words history will remember. They simply print them. Books are still expensive, but they are becoming more common every year. Knowledge is no longer trapped entirely inside monasteries or wealthy libraries. It is beginning to travel, quietly, steadily, changing minds one page at a time. Further along the street, a seamstress bends over her work near the only window offering enough daylight to sew accurately. Her fingers move with astonishing speed. Needle, thread, pull, repeat, hour after hour. She stitches shirts, repairs coats, shortens sleeves, patches worn trousers that have already survived years of hard labor. Her back aches. Her eyesight grows weaker with every passing season. Still, she continues. Because every finished garment means another few coins, another meal, another week of rent. London rewards those willing to work, but it rarely rewards them generously. By midday, the workshops grow hotter. The streets outside become louder. The smell of fresh timber mixes with hot iron, glue, ink, leather, sweat, and smoke until the entire neighborhood feels alive. There is no silence here, only effort. Every hammer strike, every stitch, every printed page, every carefully carved plank of wood. Together, they build the city piece by piece. Yet even these hard-working men and women know something that every Londoner eventually learns. No amount of skill, no amount of effort can completely protect you from what waits beyond the workshop doors. Because outside, disease still lingers. Poverty still follows. Accidents happen without warning. And by nightfall, the same city that rewards honest labor can become a place where survival depends on far more than hard work alone. By the time the afternoon begins to fade, the city has already lived an entire lifetime. Thousands of bargains have been made. Thousands of loaves of bread have changed hands. Ships have unloaded their cargo. Workshops have echoed with the sound of hammer and saw. Children have run errands across streets that seem impossibly crowded. Merchants have celebrated profits. Laborers have counted the hours until they can finally rest. But London is far from finished. In fact, the city is about to reveal the side that outsiders rarely understood. Watch the sunlight carefully. It doesn't disappear all at once. It slips away slowly, almost reluctantly, as though even the sun is hesitant to leave this extraordinary city. The golden light resting on church towers begins to soften. Long shadows stretch across the cobblestones. The upper windows of tall houses glow briefly with the last warmth of the day. Then, one by one, the colors begin to fade. Blue becomes gray. Gray becomes black. The city changes before your eyes. A shopkeeper steps outside his small business. He reaches up and folds heavy wooden shutters across the front windows. The loud bang of timber against timber echoes down the narrow street. Across the road, another merchant does the same. Soon, an entire row of shops is closing for night. Not because business has disappeared, because daylight has. Without electricity, darkness changes everything. A candle is expensive. Lamp oil is valuable. Every family carefully decides how much light they can afford. Many simply accept the darkness. The first lanterns begin to appear. A tavern keeper lights the iron lamp hanging above his doorway. Its yellow flame dances in the evening breeze. Further along the street, another lantern flickers to life. Then another, yet even together, they cannot truly defeat the night. Between each pool of light lies darkness. Deep, silent, waiting. Walk only 20 or 30 yards away from the busiest streets, and it feels as though the city itself has vanished. The darkness swallows detail. Faces disappear. Buildings become shadows. Every footstep echoes louder than before. Every stranger becomes impossible to read. You hear someone approaching. You cannot see them clearly. Friend? Customer? Beggar? Thief? There is no way to know until they stand only a few feet away. That uncertainty becomes part of everyday life. But while some people hurry home, others are only beginning their evening. Follow the warm glow spilling from an open doorway. Before you even reach it, you hear laughter. Deep, honest, unrestrained laughter. Push open the heavy wooden door. Immediately, the cold disappears. A wave of warmth washes over you. The room is alive. The smell of roasted meat hangs in the air. Fresh ale spills across worn wooden tables. Smoke from dozens of clay pipes curls lazily toward dark ceiling beams blackened by years of soot. Tankards slam loudly against rough oak. Someone cheers. Someone groans after losing a wager. Someone begins singing an old sailor song. Within moments, half the room joins in. This is the tavern. For countless Londoners, it is far more than a place to drink. It is where the city comes to talk. A sailor fresh from the Atlantic describes waves taller than houses. With every mug of ale, the waves somehow become even larger. A merchant boasts about the fortune he expects to make from the next shipment arriving from the Caribbean. Nearby, A carpenter celebrates completing a difficult commission. Two dock workers compare aching shoulders while laughing at hardships that would make outsiders miserable. For a few precious hours, everyone forgets tomorrow. The tavern has its own rules. Inside these walls, a poor laborer might sit beside a successful merchant. A visiting traveler might share stories with a local blacksmith. News travels faster here than almost anywhere else. Before newspapers reach every street, the tavern becomes London's unofficial newsroom. Did you hear about the fire near the docks? They say another ship arrived from India. I heard Parliament is discussing new taxes. No, that's not what happened. Every story changes slightly as it passes from table to table. Some become more accurate. Others become legends before midnight. Not all entertainment involves conversation. In one corner, a fiddler begins playing a lively tune. A young couple laughs as they attempt a simple dance. The wooden floor creaks beneath their feet. Someone claps in rhythm. Another joins. Soon the entire room is alive with music. For people whose lives are filled with endless labor, moments like these matter. Laughter costs nothing, yet it is worth more than gold. Still, the tavern has another face. Card games quietly begin in darker corners of the room. A deck of worn playing cards slides across a table. Coins are placed carefully in the center. No one speaks much. Only eyes move, watching, calculating, waiting. One lucky hand could double a week's wages. One unlucky hand could erase them. The temptation is irresistible. Hope has always been the favorite companion of gamblers. Not everyone leaves, smiling. A disagreement begins over a game. Voices rise. Chairs scrape against the floor. Friends step between two angry men before fists replace words. The argument ends almost as quickly as it began. Tomorrow they may drink together again. Life is too difficult to remain angry forever. Outside, night has settled completely. The streets feel different now. Quieter, yet somehow more dangerous. A faint voice echoes through the darkness. Past 10 o'clock, and all is well. The night watchman walks slowly beneath the weak glow of his lantern. He carries a wooden staff. His boots strike the cobblestones with steady confidence. He repeats his call every few minutes, not simply to tell the time, to reassure sleeping families that someone remains awake. Whether he could truly protect the neighborhood is another matter. His lantern illuminates only a few yards ahead. Beyond that, darkness belongs to whoever chooses to hide within it. A merchant leaving the tavern pulls his coat tightly around his body. His purse is hidden beneath several layers of clothing. He walks quickly, without looking back. He has learned London's oldest lesson. Never give the night an opportunity. Somewhere in a narrow alley, a pair of unseen eyes quietly follows another lonely traveler. Not every man working after dark earns his living honestly. A pickpocket waits where the street narrows. Another thief studies which tavern customers appear most intoxicated. Patience is their greatest weapon. The careless rarely notice danger until it is too late. Yet despite all this, life continues. Behind tiny windows, candles still burn. Families gather around modest suppers. A mother gently brushes soot from her son's hair before he falls asleep. An elderly couple quietly share the last piece of bread, remaining from the day's meal. Neighbors exchange a few final words before closing their doors. The city grows quieter, not silent. London is never truly silent. Somewhere, a baby cries. A horse stamps inside its stable. Church bells mark another passing hour. The Thames continues flowing through the darkness, exactly as it did yesterday, and exactly as it will tomorrow, because while the people of London sleep, the city itself never seems to rest. It simply waits for another dawn, another crowd, another struggle, another chance. For most people, the greatest comfort in 18th century London was not wealth. It was making it home before the city changed its mind. The streets behind you grow quieter as you leave the tavern district. The laughter fades. The music disappears. Only the steady sound of your own footsteps remains. The lantern hanging outside your home has long since burned out. There is no bright porch light waiting to welcome you. Only darkness. You reach out carefully. Your fingers find a familiar rough grain of the wooden door. The iron latch feels cold beneath your hand. You lift it gently. The hinges groan in protest. Then, a wave of warmth brushes against your face. Not the warmth of luxury. The warmth of people. The warmth of home. Inside, the room is dimly lit by 2 small candles and the dying glow of the fireplace. The flames are low now. Every piece of firewood costs money. No family burns more than necessary. The room is quiet, not because there is nothing to say, but because everyone is tired. The kind of tiredness that settles deep into your bones. The kind earned after 12 or 14 hours of physical work. Around the table sit the people who matter most. A father with cracked hands still stained by the day's labor. A mother whose fingers are rough from washing clothes, kneading bread, and mending torn garments. A grandmother slowly knitting beside the fire despite her failing eyesight. 3 children squeezed together on a narrow bench, sharing a single wooden bowl. Nobody complains. There is little reason to. This is simply life. Supper is already waiting. It is modest. A thick vegetable stew simmers gently above the fire. Cabbage, onions, turnips, perhaps a handful of barley. If the family has enjoyed a particularly successful week, there may even be a few small pieces of salted beef floating in the broth. Fresh bread rests beside the pot. The loaf is dense and dark. Nothing like the soft white bread served in wealthy homes. Yet, when it is dipped into the warm stew, it becomes a feast. Every meal begins with gratitude, not because the food is extraordinary, because food exists at all. Many Londoners know what hunger feels like: a poor harvest, an unexpected illness, a lost job. Any one of these can empty a family's table within days. That knowledge changes the way people eat. Nothing is wasted. A crust of bread is saved. Bones are boiled again tomorrow. Vegetable scraps feed chickens, if the family is lucky enough to keep them. Ash from the fireplace may even be reused to help make soap. The modern idea of throwing something away simply because it is old would seem almost unbelievable. Everything has another use. Everything has value. As supper begins, conversation slowly returns. The youngest child eagerly describes chasing pigeons near the market square. His older sister rolls her eyes. Their father smiles despite trying not to. Their mother quietly asks whether everyone washed their hands before eating. She knows perfectly well that clean hands cannot prevent every illness. But she also knows that small habits sometimes make the difference between health and sickness. Outside, rain begins falling softly against the roof. Tiny drops tap steadily on the wooden shingles. Inside, the fire crackles gently. For a brief moment, the world feels peaceful. Stories begin, not grand stories of kings or famous battles. Simple stories. The blacksmith whose beard accidentally caught fire. The baker who chased a goose halfway across the market. The neighbor whose cat somehow climbed onto the church roof. Children laugh. Parents laugh louder. Even the grandmother smiles quietly while pretending not to listen. These moments are easy to overlook, yet they may be the most important part of daily life. Because joy does not disappear simply because life is difficult. It becomes more precious. Once the meal is finished, the work continues. A young girl helps wash the wooden bowls using warm water from a bucket. Her mother hangs damp clothes closer to the fire so they might dry before morning. The father carefully sharpens a small knife that has served the family for years. Every tool must be maintained. Replacing it would cost far more than repairing it. Across the room, the grandmother carefully examines a torn wool coat. By candlelight, she threads a needle. Every stitch is slow, precise, patient. The coat has already survived many winters. If she does her work well, it may survive another. Children begin preparing for bed. There are no separate bedrooms decorated with toys. Most working families share sleeping space. 2 brothers may sleep together beneath one blanket. Parents occupy another bed. Sometimes grandparents sleep in the same room. Sometimes even apprentices or distant relatives share whatever space remains. Privacy is a rare luxury. Family life is lived together. Every cough is heard. Every nightmare wakes the household. Every celebration belongs to everyone. The candles burn lower. One by one they are extinguished. Not because anyone wishes to sleep early. Because candles are expensive. Darkness costs nothing. The fire becomes the only remaining source of light. Its orange glow dances across the walls, making familiar shadows seem strangely alive. The youngest child is already asleep. His breathing is slow and peaceful. His mother gently pulls the blanket higher around his shoulders. She lingers for just a second, watching, perhaps wondering what kind of future awaits him. Will he become a carpenter? A sailor? A merchant? Will he even live long enough to choose? No parent in 18th century London could answer that question with confidence. Disease never announced its arrival. Accidents never asked permission. Life itself remained uncertain. Yet parents still dreamed. Because without dreams, hope cannot survive. Before lying down, the father quietly checks the wooden latch on the front door one final time. Not because he expects trouble, because habit has taught him caution. Outside, the wind grows stronger. Somewhere in the darkness, a watchman's voice echoes faintly through the streets. A dog barks in the distance. The River Thames continues flowing beneath the night sky, carrying ships toward tomorrow. Inside, the house grows completely still. One by one, every pair of tired eyes closes. The city may never truly sleep, but its people must, because in only a few short hours, the church bells will ring again. The fire must be lit again. The bread must be earned again. And another ordinary day, in one of the most extraordinary cities on earth, will begin when morning comes again. The same sun rises over every rooftop. It shines on the grand houses of the wealthy and on the crooked cottages of the poor. It warms the polished windows of elegant mansions and the patched roofs of overcrowded homes. The sunlight makes no distinction. People do. To someone arriving in London for the very first time, the city might appear united. Everyone walks the same streets. Everyone hears the same church bells. Everyone breathes the same smoky air drifting above the Thames. But spend only a single day here, and you discover an invisible wall separating one London from another. It is not built from stone. It is built from money. Follow a wealthy gentleman as he wakes. His bedroom is quiet. The mattress beneath him is stuffed with soft feathers instead of straw. Heavy curtains keep out the morning cold. A servant has already risen before dawn to light the fire. The room is warm long before he opens his eyes. A silver basin filled with clean water waits nearby. Fresh linen has been prepared. His clothes hang neatly pressed and carefully brushed. He does not wonder whether he will have breakfast. He wonders only what will be served. Now, walk only a few streets away. Another family is waking. Their room is no larger than the wealthy man's dining room. 5 people sleep beneath the same roof. Sometimes 6. Sometimes more. The youngest child spent half the night coughing. The fire went out before midnight because there was no more coal to burn. Ice formed inside the corners of the window. During winter, everyone woke cold. No servant prepares their morning. No one lays fresh clothes beside the bed. The day's work begins the moment they open their eyes. Breakfast reveals another world entirely. In wealthy homes, a long table is covered with white linen. Fresh bread still warm from the oven. Creamy butter. Eggs. Smoked ham. Imported tea. Fine porcelain cups. Honey. Jams. Perhaps even oranges brought across the sea at enormous expense. Every plate reflects prosperity. Servants move quietly around the room, replacing empty cups before anyone asks. Conversation begins gently. Business. Politics. Trade. Plans for the afternoon. The morning feels calm, measured, unhurried. Across the city, a laborer's family gathers around a much smaller table. Breakfast may consist of yesterday's bread soaked in warm broth, or a bowl of oatmeal cooked over fire. Sometimes there is cheese, sometimes not. Tea is often too expensive. Coffee remains a luxury. Milk depends on whether enough money remained after paying rent. Nobody eats slowly. The workday cannot wait. Every minute lost at home may mean fewer coins earned before sunset. Clothing speaks just as loudly as food. A wealthy gentleman dresses layer by layer. A crisp linen shirt, a finely embroidered waistcoat, a tailored wool coat, silk stockings, polished leather shoes, a carefully powdered wig. Silver buckles gleam in the morning light. Even his walking cane announces success. Fashion is no longer simply about staying warm. It is a public display of status. A wealthy lady may spend hours preparing for a social visit. Her gown is made from silk imported across oceans. Lace decorates her sleeves. Delicate ribbons frame her dress. Perfume masks the smell of the city. Jewelry catches the light. With every graceful movement, she is expected to appear elegant, to represent her family's wealth before speaking a single word. Meanwhile, an ordinary laborer owns perhaps 2 shirts, one for work, one for church, if fortunate. His boots have already been repaired several times. His coat carries patches on both elbows. The cloth has faded after years beneath London's smoke and rain. Yet every stitch has been sewn with care. Replacing clothing costs more than repairing it. So nothing is thrown away, not until the fabric can no longer hold another thread. Even children understand these differences. The son of a merchant learns to read business ledgers. He studies mathematics, geography, foreign languages. Perhaps one day he will inherit warehouses, ships, or successful companies. His future has already begun. A poor child begins learning something different. How to carry heavy buckets without spilling. How to clean chimneys. How to deliver messages across crowded streets. How to help support the family before reaching adulthood. Childhood itself becomes shorter. Responsibility arrives early. Yet wealth does not guarantee happiness. Behind the elegant doors of London's finest houses, pressure hides beneath polished furniture. A merchant worries about ships crossing dangerous oceans. One storm could destroy years of investment. A banker fears financial collapse. An aristocratic family fears scandal. A daughter worries about an arranged marriage decided more by fortune than affection. Money softens many hardships. It never removes uncertainty. By midday, both Londons become visible on the same streets. A magnificent carriage rolls slowly toward Westminster. Its horses wear polished harnesses. Its wheels are freshly painted. Inside, the passengers speak quietly behind glass windows. Only a few yards away, a barefoot child sells bundles of firewood. Their eyes meet for the briefest moment. Then the carriage continues. The child turns toward another customer. Neither fully understand the other's life, yet both call the same city home. Perhaps that is what makes 18th century London so extraordinary. Not simply its size, not its wealth, not even its growing influence across the world, but its astonishing contrasts. Luxury and hardship, comfort and exhaustion, hope and despair, living side by side, separated by little more than a street. And while wealth shaped nearly every aspect of daily life, there was one force that ignored social class entirely. It entered grand mansions without permission. It slipped quietly into overcrowded homes. It frightened rich and poor alike, because no amount of money could always protect a family from illness. There was one enemy in 18th century London that no one could bargain with. No merchant could buy it off. No soldier could fight it. No judge could sentence it. No king could command it to leave. It arrived without warning. It entered through doors left open, through crowded streets, through shared cups, through the very air people breathed. And once it entered a home, every heartbeat became uncertain. Its name was illness. To understand what it meant to live in 1700s London, you must first forget everything modern medicine has taught you. Forget antibiotics. Forget vaccines. Forget emergency ambulances rushing through traffic. Forget hospitals glowing with bright electric lights. Forget the reassuring sound of machines quietly monitoring every heartbeat. None of those things exist here. When sickness comes, a family has very little to rely upon except faith, experience, and hope. Imagine waking one cold winter morning. The room feels unusually quiet. The youngest child, who normally races toward the fireplace before anyone else, remains beneath the blanket. His cheeks are flushed. His breathing is faster than yesterday. His forehead burns beneath your hand. At first, No one panics. Children catch fevers. Adults become exhausted. Perhaps a day of rest will solve everything. The mother prepares warm broth. The father quietly leaves for work, promising to return early. The grandmother whispers a prayer beneath her breath. Everyone believes tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow arrives, and the fever remains. By the third day, the child refuses food. His small body trembles beneath the blanket. His cough grows deeper. Each breath sounds heavier than the last. Now, the room feels different. Conversations become whispers. The laughter that usually fills the evening meal disappears. Even the fire seems quieter. One family member is sent to fetch help, perhaps the local apothecary, perhaps a physician, if the family can somehow afford one, perhaps an experienced neighbor who has seen similar illnesses before. No one knows exactly what disease has entered the house. They have names for symptoms, not for microscopic causes. The word germs has no meaning here. Invisible bacteria and viruses remain completely unknown. People know sickness spreads. They simply do not know why. The physician finally arrives. His long coat is neatly brushed. A leather bag hangs from one shoulder. Inside are instruments carefully polished after years of use. He asks questions, feels the child's pulse, examines the tongue, looks closely into tired eyes. He studies carefully, because observation is one of the few reliable tools medicine possesses. Then comes the diagnosis, not one based upon modern science, but upon centuries of inherited medical belief. The body's natural balance, he explains, has been disturbed. The ancient theory of the four humors still influences much of European medicine. Too much blood, too much yellow bile, too much black bile, too much phlegm. Health depends upon balance. Illness suggests imbalance. And so, treatment begins. Perhaps the physician recommends bloodletting. A shallow cut allows blood to flow into a waiting bowl. The family watches silently. Some believe this will remove the illness. Others simply hope the physician is right. Nearby, another patient receives leeches. Small, dark creatures slowly attach themselves to skin. They feed quietly while everyone waits. No one enjoys the process. Yet many trust it, because alternatives are few. Others turn instead to the apothecary. Step inside a small shop. Immediately your nose fills with unfamiliar scents. Dried lavender, rosemary, mint, camphor, honey, licorice root, crushed flowers, ground minerals. Shelves stretch from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of glass bottles catch the weak afternoon light. Some contain powders. Others hold thick syrups. Bundles of herbs hang upside down from wooden beams above your head. The entire room smells like a forest trapped inside a tiny building. The apothecary listens patiently, then begins preparing a remedy. He measures carefully. A pinch of this, several drops of that, everything mixed with practiced confidence. Some medicines genuinely ease pain. Certain herbs reduce fever. Others calm the stomach. Many remedies possess real value, even if their makers do not fully understand why. Others offer comfort more than cure. Still, comfort itself has power. A frightened family needs hope almost as much as medicine. Hospitals exist, but they are very different from those of today. Most Londoners fear them. Only the desperately ill enter willingly. Large rooms hold dozens of patients. Beds stand close together. The smell of sweat, sickness, damp linen, and smoke fills the air. Doctors move constantly between one patient and the next. Privacy barely exists. Cleanliness remains difficult. The idea that washing hands before every examination could save lives has not yet become common practice. Without realizing it, illness sometimes spreads inside the very buildings meant to fight it. Surgery is even more frightening. No anesthesia, no modern pain relief, no sterile operating rooms, only a wooden table, sharp instruments, strong assistants, and extraordinary courage. The surgeon works as quickly as human hands allow. Every second matters, not simply because time is valuable, because every additional moment means more pain. Many patients survive, many do not. Often, it is not the operation itself that proves fatal. It is the infection that follows. Perhaps nowhere is fear greater than during childbirth. A new baby brings joy, but also anxiety. Every pregnancy carries genuine danger. Mothers understand this. Midwives understand it even better. When labor begins, neighbors quietly gather. Hot water is prepared. Clean cloths are folded. Prayers fill the room. Hours pass. Sometimes everything goes well. Sometimes the entire household waits through the night, wondering who will still be alive when morning arrives. Many mothers survive. Far too many do not. Infant mortality remains heartbreakingly common. Some children never celebrate a first birthday. Others reach 5 years old only after surviving illnesses that would barely concern modern parents. Grief visits almost every family sooner or later. It becomes an unwelcome companion woven into everyday life. And yet, something remarkable happens. People refuse to surrender. They continue marrying, continue having children, continue laughing during festivals, continue celebrating birthdays, continue planting gardens, continue making plans for tomorrow, not because life is easy, because life itself remains precious. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside 18th century London. Its people understood something many of us forget. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. Every ordinary morning, every shared meal, every healthy child running across the street, every evening spent beside the fire was a gift, one they never learned to take for granted. And while illness constantly reminded Londoners how fragile life could be, another force was quietly reshaping the way they understood the world. Not through medicine, not through wealth, but through ideas. Ideas discussed in churches, printed in newspapers, debated in coffee houses, and carried from one curious mind to another. Because the 18th century was not only an age of survival, it was also becoming an age of discovery. Not every battle in 18th century London was fought with fists, or swords, or cannon. Some of the most important battles were fought with ideas. An idea whispered across a crowded coffee house, a sentence printed in a newspaper, a sermon delivered beneath the high ceiling of an ancient church, a question asked by a curious apprentice, or a conversation between two strangers who would never meet again. These quiet moments would slowly change Britain, and eventually the world. As another morning dawns over London, church bells once again roll across the rooftops. Their sound is impossible to ignore. Every parish hears them. The bells do more than announce the hour. They organize life itself. They call people to worship. They mark weddings. They mourn funerals. They celebrate victories. They warn of danger. For many Londoners, the church is far more than a place of prayer. It is the center of the community. Step inside one of the city's parish churches. The air is cool. The thick stone walls hold a night's chill long after sunrise. Sunlight filters gently through tall stained glass windows, scattering colors across worn wooden pews polished smooth by generations of worshippers. The smell is unmistakable. Old timber, melted candle wax, damp stone, a faint trace of incense lingering from earlier services. Families arrive quietly. The wealthy sit in reserved pews near the front. Laborers remove their hats before taking humble seats farther back. Children fidget. Parents whisper gentle reminders to remain still. An elderly woman closes her eyes long before the service begins. Perhaps she is praying. Perhaps she is remembering those she has already buried. The minister steps forward. His voice fills the church without effort. There are no microphones, only practiced speech and careful silence from those listening. For many people, this is one of the few moments each week when the entire neighborhood gathers beneath the same roof. Rich, poor, young, old, all listening to the same words. Outside the church, life immediately resumes its hurried pace. But another kind of gathering has become increasingly popular throughout London. The coffee house. At first glance, it seems ordinary. A narrow doorway, wooden tables, simple chairs. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifting into the street. But step inside, and you enter one of the most fascinating places in the 18th century world. Unlike the noisy taverns where ale loosens tongues, coffee houses sharpen minds. The atmosphere feels different. Voices remain lively, yet more thoughtful. Merchants discuss international trade. Lawyers debate recent court decisions. Ship captains describe storms in distant oceans. Doctors argue over new medical theories. Writers read freshly finished essays. Scientists exchange bold ideas about the natural world. Politics, economics, astronomy, philosophy, nothing seems too ambitious for discussion. Some visitors remain for hours. A single cup of coffee grants admission into a room overflowing with information. News travels quickly here, faster than most governments would prefer. On one table lies a freshly printed newspaper. Several men lean closely together, reading each paragraph aloud. Not everyone can read fluently, but everyone wishes to know what is happening. A ship has returned from the Caribbean. Another has been delayed near the coast of Portugal. Parliament debates new taxes. Prices of imported tea continue rising. A scientific society has announced another remarkable experiment. Every article sparks another conversation. Sometimes, several conversations. Ideas spread from table to table almost as rapidly as laughter spreads through a crowded tavern. One gentleman quietly unfolds a map. Another points toward distant colonies across the Atlantic. What opportunities lie there? Someone asks. No one truly knows. Yet everyone has an opinion. Across the room, a young apprentice listens silently. He rarely speaks. He cannot afford to. His position requires humility, but his ears miss nothing. He hears merchants explaining commerce. He hears philosophers questioning old traditions. He hears explorers describing lands beyond imagination. Those conversations stay with him long after he leaves. Knowledge has become contagious, and unlike disease, people seek this infection willingly. Not far away, another revolution unfolds inside London's printing houses. Printing presses work almost without rest. The heavy wood machines groan rhythmically as fresh sheets emerge covered with ink. Books remain expensive, yet they are becoming more accessible every year. Religious works, travel journals, scientific discoveries, collections of poetry, political pamphlets, instruction manuals, maps. Every printed page carries ideas farther than a single voice ever could. Books begin appearing in homes that only a generation earlier could never have imagined owning one. Children learn to read. Parents encourage curiosity. Teachers slowly discover that education offers something more valuable than simple memorization. It offers possibility. Libraries begin attracting visitors from every social class. Some arrive searching for practical knowledge. Others simply wish to understand the rapidly changing world surrounding them. Curiosity itself becomes fashionable. A question no longer sounds dangerous. It sounds exciting. Across London, inventors tinker with strange machines inside crowded workshops. Astronomers point telescopes toward unfamiliar stars. Natural philosophers, what we would now call scientists, perform careful experiments seeking explanations instead of ancient superstitions. Many discoveries remain imperfect. Some conclusions later prove entirely wrong. But something extraordinary has begun. People increasingly believe that observation, reason, and evidence can reveal truths hidden from previous generations. This spirit becomes known as the Enlightenment. Few ordinary laborers use that word, yet many feel its effects. Better tools, improved navigation, more accurate maps, growing literacy, fresh opportunities. Even those who never enter a coffee house benefit from ideas born inside one. Still, old beliefs do not disappear overnight. Many Londoners continue trusting traditional medicine. Many remain deeply superstitious. Some fear comets. Others believe dreams predict future events. Fortune tellers still attract curious customers. Ancient customs survive beside modern thinking. The city becomes a fascinating mixture of old and new. One foot remains planted in the medieval past. The other cautiously steps toward the modern future. As evening approaches once again, the coffee houses slowly empty. Books close. Newspapers fold neatly beneath arms. Conversations continue into the streets. Ideas follow people home. Into workshops. Into family dinners. Into churches. into Parliament itself. Because once an idea has entered a city, it becomes almost impossible to imprison. And London is becoming one of the greatest marketplaces of ideas the world has ever known. Yet, while scholars debate philosophy and merchants calculate fortunes, thousands of men are preparing ships that will soon leave the Thames. Ships carrying tea, silk, sugar, spices, and people, some willingly, others in chains. Because London's growing wealth did not come from ideas alone. It also came from an empire stretching across oceans. An empire whose opportunities and injustices would shape the city's future forever. Before London became famous for its grand buildings, before it became the financial heart of an empire, before millions of people filled its streets, there was one reason the city grew richer than almost anyone could have imagined: the river. Every morning, long before the markets reached their busiest hours, long before Parliament opened its doors, the River Thames was already awake. It never seemed to sleep. Even in darkness, the tide continued to rise and fall beneath hundreds of wooden wharves. The water carried the future of the city. Stand quietly beside the riverbank just before sunrise. A cold mist drifts across the water, hiding the opposite shore beneath a pale gray curtain. For a moment, everything feels strangely peaceful. Then the silence begins to break. The deep creak of a ship's hull rocking gently with the tide. The snap of heavy ropes pulled tight around weathered wooden posts. The cries of gulls circling overhead, already searching for scraps left by yesterday's fishermen. A sailor shouts an order from somewhere beyond the fog. Another voice answers. Within minutes, the docks are alive. Hundreds of men hurry across damp planks, carrying barrels, sacks, crates, and coils of rope. Some balance impossible loads across their shoulders. Others push handcarts through narrow passages barely wide enough where two people pass. No one wastes movement. Time on the docks is measured in money. Every hour a ship remains unloaded costs its owner dearly. Every delay means lost profit. Every mistake risks disaster. Walk closer. The smell strikes you immediately. Salt water, tar, wet timber, coal smoke, fresh fish, spilled beer, sweat, and beneath it all, the thick, muddy scent of the Thames itself. To modern visitors, the river might seem unpleasant. To 18th century Londoners, it smells like opportunity. Every ship arriving from distant shores carries the possibility of wealth. One vessel has sailed from the Baltic, its hold packed with timber essential for building houses and repairing ships. Another arrives from Portugal carrying wine. A third has crossed the Atlantic with sugar harvested in the Caribbean. Nearby, another unloads tobacco, tea from Asia, coffee from the Middle East, silk from China, spices from India, cotton from the Americas. London is becoming connected to the wider world in ways earlier generations could scarcely imagine. You hear languages from every corner of Europe: English, Dutch, French, Portuguese, German. Irish accents mingle with Scottish voices. Foreign merchants negotiate prices using translators when necessary. The docks become one of the most diverse places in the city. Here, a man's birthplace matters less than his ability to do business. At least, most of the time. Follow a group of dock workers. Their day is brutally physical. A single barrel may weigh more than one man can comfortably lift. Yet hundreds must be moved before sunset. Shoulders ache. Hands blister. Backs bend beneath impossible loads. The work never truly ends. Rain makes the wooden docks dangerously slippery. Winter freezes fingers until ropes feel like iron. Summer brings unbearable heat trapped between warehouses. Still, the ships keep arriving, and the work continues. Not everyone standing on these docks is a laborer. A merchant in a fine wool coat walks slowly along the waterfront. He rarely touches the cargo himself. Instead, he watches, calculates, counts. Every crate represents investment. Every delay threatens profit. He carries ledgers instead of ropes. Ink stains his fingers rather than tar. Yet his future depends just as much upon the sea. A single storm in the Atlantic can destroy an entire fortune before anyone in London even knows disaster has struck. News travels slowly. Weeks, sometimes months. Imagine investing everything you own into one voyage, then waiting an entire season to discover whether your ship survived. That uncertainty shapes every decision. The sea offers enormous rewards. It demands enormous risks. Nearby, a young sailor prepares to leave London once again. His sea chest contains almost everything he owns. A few shirts, a knife, a Bible perhaps, a letter from home folded carefully beneath his clothes. His mother stands nearby, trying not to cry. She smiles instead. She knows he must leave. Work at sea feeds a family. But she also understands something both refuse to say aloud. Many ships never return. Storms, disease, shipwrecks, pirates, war. The ocean is beautiful. It is also unforgiving. The sailor embraces his younger brother, shakes his father's hand, then climbs the gangplank without looking back. Not because he lacks courage, because looking back makes leaving harder. The ship slowly drifts away from the dock. Its sails catch the morning wind. The crowd watches until the vessel becomes little more than a shadow against the horizon. For some, that goodbye lasts a few months. For others, a lifetime. Yet beneath London's growing prosperity lies another story, a darker one. Many fortunes built in 18th century Britain were connected, directly or indirectly, to systems of colonial exploitation and the transatlantic slave trade. Ships crossed oceans carrying goods that enriched merchants and investors. Some ships also carried enslaved human beings who had been violently taken from their homes and denied their freedom. Countless families suffered unimaginably because of this system. Many people in London benefited economically without fully witnessing its human cost. Others spoke out against it. And in the decades that followed, growing movements would challenge and eventually help bring about its abolition. The wealth flowing into London was real. So too was the suffering that helped create part of it. To understand the city honestly, both truths must be remembered. As afternoon sunlight dances across the river, the docks grow even busier. Warehouse doors swing endlessly open and closed. Account books fill with numbers. Hammers repair damaged ships. Ropes are coiled. Sails patched. Anchors raised. Every person has a task. Every task keeps the city moving. Stand for one final moment beside the Thames. Watch the tide carry another ship toward the open sea. Watch another arrive from beyond the horizon. Notice how the river never asks where a traveler came from, only where they are going. That constant movement transformed London from a large city into one of the world's greatest ports. But rivers carry more than trade. They also carry disease, floods, pollution, and the waste of hundreds of thousands of people. The Thames gave London life. Sometimes it reminded London of its fragility. And as the city continued growing faster than ever before, its greatest challenge was no longer finding opportunity. It was learning how to survive the consequences of its own success. There is one thing almost every visitor notices, yet almost every Londoner eventually stops seeing. The dirt, not because it disappears, because it becomes ordinary. If you spent a single day walking through 18th century London, your boots would never remain clean. By noon, they would already carry a layer of mud thick enough to change their color. By evening, you would probably stop trying to avoid it altogether. The streets of London are alive, but they are also messy in ways that are difficult for the modern imagination to grasp. Remember, there are no garbage trucks, no underground sewer system serving the entire city, no plastic rubbish bins standing neatly beside every road, no sanitation department cleaning the streets before dawn. Instead, the city cleans itself slowly, and often not very well. Step outside after a night of heavy rain. The cobblestones glisten beneath the weak morning light. At first, they almost look beautiful, but beauty can be deceptive. Rain has mixed together horse manure, wagon grease, coal ash, discarded vegetable leaves, broken straw, spilled beer, and ordinary household waste. The result is a thick layer of slippery mud that covers almost every busy street. Each passing wagon churns it deeper. Each horse adds a little more. Every traveler learns to watch the ground as carefully as the road ahead. A single careless step can ruin your boots, or worse, send you tumbling into the filth. The smell changes from street to street. Near the bakeries, warm bread still dominates the air. Near the breweries, the scent of barley and yeast grows stronger. But wander into the poorer neighborhoods, and the smell becomes heavier. Rotting refuse, standing water, smoke trapped between crowded buildings, human waste, animals sharing the same narrow lanes as people. Fresh air is a luxury that rarely visits these streets. Yet, remarkably, life continues around it. Children chase one another through the alleys without hesitation. Street dogs search for scraps beneath market stalls. Women scrub doorsteps each morning, hoping to keep at least a small part of the city clean. Shopkeepers sweep dirt away from their entrances, only to watch another passing wagon scatter it back again moments later. Cleaning becomes a task that is never truly finished. Water presents another challenge. Today, you simply turn a tap. Clear water appears almost instantly. For Londoners in the 18th century, nothing is so simple. Some families draw water from public pumps. Others purchase it from water carriers who spend their days transporting heavy buckets across the city. A strong man balances two wooden pails suspended from a long pole resting across his shoulders. Back and forth, hour after hour, street after street. Every drop represents hard labor. Even then, not all water is equally safe. The River Thames provides life. It also receives waste from thousands of homes and businesses. Many people understand that some water tastes better than others. Few fully understand why certain sources spread disease. So they continue using what is available. Boiling water helps. Ale and small beer are often consumed because brewing naturally involves boiling. But clean drinking water remains an everyday concern. Now, lift your eyes above the streets. Notice how closely the houses stand together. Some upper floors lean so far outward that neighbors across the lane could almost shake hands from their windows. Sunlight struggles to reach the ground. The narrow streets remain damp for much of the day. Fresh air circulates poorly. Smoke from thousands of fireplaces drifts overhead, creating a gray haze that rarely disappears completely. When winter arrives, that smoke grows even thicker. Every family burns coal if they can afford it. Wood if they cannot. The result is a city wrapped beneath its own cloud. Your eyes sting. Your throat feels dry. The smell settles into clothing until even freshly washed garments soon carry the familiar scent of smoke. Still, people adapt. They always do. Perhaps the greatest fear hiding beneath everyday life is not dirt, nor disease. It is fire. London remembers. Even decades after the Great Fire of 1666, its memory lingers in every conversation about crowded streets and wooden houses. Many of the city's newer buildings are constructed with more brick than before. Yet, timber remains everywhere. Wooden floors, wooden roofs, wooden staircases, wooden workshops. Open fireplaces burn from dawn until night. Candles flicker in nearly every room. A single spark, a forgotten ember, a chimney left uncleaned, could still turn an entire neighborhood into an inferno. People remain vigilant. Before going to bed, many families carefully cover the fire with ash, hoping no hidden flame survives until morning. Neighbors watch for smoke rising where it should not. Church bells do more than call people to prayer. They also warn of disaster. If flames appear, everyone hears. Everyone runs. Buckets are passed from hand to hand. Men climb roofs with hooks, pulling down burning beams to stop the fire from spreading. There are no powerful fire engines waiting around the corner, only ordinary citizens trying desperately to save their homes. As London grows larger each year, new challenges appear. More mouths to feed, more waste to remove, more houses squeeze into every available space, more pressure on roads, markets, and water supplies. Success creates its own problems. The city that attracts opportunity also attracts overcrowding. Yet despite every inconvenience, despite the mud, the smoke, the smell, the endless labor required simply to keep the city functioning, people continue arriving. Why? Because London offers something stronger than comfort. It offers possibility. A farm laborer may become a skilled craftsman. An apprentice may one day own his own workshop. A merchant's son may build an international trading company. A writer may publish a book read across Britain. A poor child might dream of becoming something greater than his parents ever imagined. Not everyone succeeds. Many fail, but enough succeed to keep hope alive. As evening slowly settles over the rooftops once more, you realize something extraordinary. For all its hardships, for all its dangers, for all its noise, smoke, and uncertainty, London never stops believing in tomorrow. Perhaps that is why generations continue to build it, stone by stone, street by street, life by life, and perhaps that is why its story still fascinates us more than 3 centuries later. Because beneath the soot and the struggle, beneath the crowded alleys and the endless work, lived ordinary people. People who loved, who laughed, who worried, who dreamed. People whose names history rarely remembered, but whose lives quietly built one of the greatest cities the world has ever known. The kings ruled it. The merchants enriched it. The thinkers transformed it. But it was the ordinary Londoner who truly kept it alive. And if you had walked beside them for even a single day, you would have discovered that life in 1700s London was not merely about surviving history. It was about living it. Every sunrise, every meal, every conversation, every hardship, every hope, one ordinary day at a time.